Happy New Year, this is Grant Thomas. It is the 1st of January 2017 and I wanted to give you a bit of a video update on my electric car experiences. I've been doing these videos for 5 years. Not so many videos of late because I have been starting up another business, a microbrewery, on top of my day job in IT, but it's 1 year since I did my last update. I'm in a 2015 Nissan LEAF Tekna that I've been leasing for the past 2 years, and this car goes back in the next 3 months. My other car that we use as a family is a Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV GX4h. That's the GX4h, not the S, because the S stands for stupid. It has a couple of silly features that you just want to turn off all the time. And that car goes back in July this year. So we've actually got to consider changing two electric cars to two new cars in the next 7 months. So let's just give a bit of an update on my experiences driving this and the Outlander. I guess the first comment would be the game changer that this car is from the Mark I LEAF. So the Mark I LEAF was the Japanese LEAF. It had a very basic heating system that in the winter had a big impact on the battery, so it uses resistive heating, basically a bit like a fan heater, and it used huge amounts of energy to make the thing get warm, and that just had a direct impact on the battery. Not uncommon in the winter in the Mark I LEAF to struggle to get 50 miles of range out of it if you're wanting a cabin set on 21 degrees, which my other half would like. I like a cooler cabin. So it made a big change coming to the Tekna, which has the heat pump that uses a lot less energy. This particular car in the, what is that now? So it's going to be 1 year 8 months, 1 year 9 months that I've been driving it. I've done 13,500 miles. Now I actually had a 20,000 mile limit on my lease, or 10,000 miles a year, and it's quite clear I'm not going to hit that. Now I have been doing more miles recently because I've been doing some more business for the brewery, doing some deliveries, so this does get out and about where I am right now in the West Sussex countryside, going past Stansted Park, one of my stockists. And yeah, it's been a great car for those kinds of journeys, zipping in and out all through the day, being able to plug it in at home. I haven't done any long trips in this particular LEAF, but if you've seen my videos before, it's possible, but you need to plan, you need to have backup, you need to have contingency. I regularly see people jump in these cars thinking they can operate as if it was a petrol car, and then finding that a rapid charger is closed because that stretch of motorway is having roadworks done in the middle of the night, or they've had some problems and they don't know where to go and they haven't got backup plans, and you can't just go and get some fuel and pour it in this. So, you know, if you're wanting to do longer journeys in these 100-mile range cars, then you still need to think about how you're going to make that journey and what you may need in terms of backup. And when I did the trip from where I live on the Hampshire-West Sussex border up to Snowdon in North Wales, I had a whole crate in the boot which had adapters, chargers, portable EVSEs, extension leads, just in case those scenarios happened. I think we've also seen a change in the last year in terms of if you're wanting to access public charging, the main rapid charging motorway network, that's the network that allows you to charge an electric car to 80% in about 20 minutes in duration in time. That's run by a company called Ecotricity, and they have started introducing charging for charging at a cost of £6 for 30 minutes. Now, there has been much debate and passion, and if you're not involved in electric cars, let me just say that constraining people by time when charging a car isn't necessarily fair, because different electric cars charge at different speeds. So a Nissan LEAF in 30 minutes might get up to sort of 80%, whereas if you charge an Outlander, it's not really going to get that far or not take that much electricity because it charges at a slower rate. So unlike petrol, where you pay for the amount of litres that you use, electric car providing or charging providers are using a time-based model, which means that a Tesla will get more electricity than a LEAF, that will get more electricity than an Outlander for the same cost. Now, Ecotricity have also, interestingly, put in a charging structure that says if you're a customer, then we will allow you to have a free use of that rapid charge, but only 52 a year. So if you were looking to buy an electric car like this Nissan LEAF and wanting to use that charger to do, I don't know, maybe 2 rapid charges a week, you would be in breach of that terms of use. Now, I don't know if they're then going to start charging you £6, or I don't know how they're going to handle that at the moment, but it's just another consideration that you don't want. And whilst I'm having a rant about public charging, let me just say that my dislike of PodPoint and ChargeMaster has not changed over the past 5 years. They continue to roll out expensive charging schemes. They have constrained the amount of free charging points that are out there, and their support continues to be patchy. So I think they're expensive, they're unreliable, and I don't like as an ethos their company at the moment. But I acknowledge that if you need a charge, they are there, and I have, in the past week, used a very small amount of electricity from a Waitrose charging point, which is free and is provided by ChargeMaster. Now, the company right now that I've been most impressed with in terms of charging providers is PodPoint. PodPoint, when I started driving a car, were painful. They had these metal posts that would clamp onto your cable, your charging cable, and would not release it, and didn't work, and they were flaky as anything. But over the past 5 years, they've continued to reinvent and invest in their charging technology, and I now find their charging posts to be so simple. And I also love the ethos, which is when you pull up to a charging station, you just want to plug in. You don't want to have to get out. I've got up here all these smart cards in a holder here, because you still need to have 3 or 4 different cards if you want to use public charging. But PodPoint have actually addressed the whole experience. That sounds a very woolly phrase to use, but you just want to pull up to a charging station and plug in. You don't want to have to ferret through all these cards, hope you can get a connection, hope that the thing isn't down or the 3G signal's working, and try and get on a phone call to a helpline because the stupid thing hasn't got. You don't want that. So PodPoint have designed their new charging stations that you just rock up, you get out the cable out your boot, plug it in, and it starts charging straight away. Then you need to get your smartphone, and you've got 15 minutes to go and authenticate or make a payment to carry on charging beyond that 15 minutes initially. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. It shouldn't be that difficult. So you've got 15 minutes worth of free charging, and then you've got 15 minutes to go and grab yourself a coffee and go and pay for that charge that will then allow you to carry on charging beyond that 15 minutes. So you've got away from needing to have smart cards, you've got away from needing to be able to juggle all of that 5 minutes start up and everything else before you can charge the car. You just roll up and start charging, and there are still a number of those that are free. Waitrose at Waterlooville still has 4 7-kilowatt chargers there. Kudos, absolute delighted with how PodPoint have evolved, listened to their customers, and oh my god, Ecotricity and ChargeMaster, you could learn a lot from listening to your customers. Because anyway, rant over. So public charging is out there. There are more and more chargers becoming available. Certainly in the last 5 years. I mentioned this on my blog a year ago. There are rapid charging at every single motorway service station. There are also Ecotricity are putting through some fast chargers, and if you're not familiar with what rapid, fast and slow charging is, then have a quick Google or ping me. But you can have fast charging that will allow this car to charge at 6.6 kilowatts per hour, or about 30% of the battery for an hour's charge. So that's public charging. Let's talk about the cars. So Mark 1 Nissan LEAF I had did about 40,000 miles. It went back after 3 years worth of driving. The Outlander PHEV GX4h we've been driving for the past 18 months, 17 months. We've done 21,000 miles in. Great all-rounder. It's a blunt tool. I find it frustrating to drive because when you put your foot down too much, the engine flares in. If you put the heater on it when it's cold, the engine flares in. You can't drive it in EV mode, but I understand that's going to change in the 2017 model. So you're forever nursing that eco range to try and not burn fuel. That same mindset that I referred to back in 2012 is still there. If you buy a plug-in hybrid, you are there trying to get every single ounce of energy out of the near free electric storage before having to use the expensive dyno juice, because petrol's far more expensive way of driving than on electric. I've even observed it in some colleagues and friends who have got plug-in hybrid cars. One's got a Golf GTE and will, you know, try and get as much as they can out of that electric motor. So it's still quite a wacky mindset that when you drive a car like the Outlander PHEV, you're driving a 2-ton 4x4, and for the majority of your journey you are frankly towing around an internal combustion and petrol tank that you will only use for a fraction. It's just a safety net. And that same behaviour that I referred to in my Vauxhall Ampera video is still there. People will try and get the most they can out of electric because they don't want to burn petrol, either because it's too expensive or heck, it gives you cancer because you're breathing in the fumes, allegedly. But I find it a good all-in-one. So I have done a long road trip from the south coast of England, where I live, to Edinburgh and back again. I did that 1,200-mile road trip in 5 days. I didn't obsessively stop and charge everywhere. I certainly didn't stop and use any rapid charging, because that's the other thing. With the £6 Ecotricity fee for rapid charging, it's not worth doing it in an Outlander. Now, let me justify not worth. It's financially not worth doing it. You may have a ecological perspective that says, well, you should be stopping and using as much electricity powered transport as possible, so you should be paying £6 to go and travel a further 21 miles at best at this time of year. Frankly, I don't want to stop and have to wait half an hour if I can get to a charger to then take me a further 20 miles before I have to stop again if I just want to keep using electricity. So when I did that trip, I actually, on the way back from Edinburgh, I stopped at Mansfield and then came back home. There was no charging in Edinburgh that I actually was near to where we were staying. At Mansfield, I did stay overnight at my brother's and I plugged in there, so I had 20 odd miles in the morning, but then I burnt petrol all the way. But that's fine, that's a trip that I make once in a blue moon. I can't see when I'm going to make a trip to Edinburgh again. It's the first time I've ever done it, and I don't see a need where I do it again. But for that one journey, I was able to just burn dyno juice, petrol. But for the rest of our usage profile on the Outlander, that 21,000 miles, I'm going to say 80 to 90% of that has been done on electric. Joe, my partner, drives it on a 32-mile round trip every day, and it does the majority of that trip on electric. It's only in the last sort of 5 miles the petrol engine kicks in, only as a generator to charge the battery because we've exhausted the battery capacity. On that usage profile, Joe puts in about, I think it's £30 worth of petrol a month in that car. But after 2 years, she's had enough of that car. It's big. It is a big beast. Now, we may yet buy an Outlander like the one we currently have as a company car, because in the past year I have started a microbrewery, and it's got a useful, huge boot on the back of it. So it is a useful, blunt tool for carting large amounts of storage around. And I think that's the point I've made in my earlier videos is now even more relevant. There are many, many electric cars coming on the market, or plug-in hybrid cars, all of them different shapes and sizes, so it depends on how you want to use one. This car I'm driving right now is a 2015 Nissan LEAF Tekna. It has the 24 kilowatt hour battery. There are 2 options that I paid for on this. It has the 6.6 kilowatt charger, and I still say that that should be mandatory in every single car. You should have at least a 6.6 kilowatt charger. Stop offering 3.3 kilowatt chargers on cars. And there are even cars coming on the road today. Look at the new B-Class Mercedes, I think it is, that has that it's an electric car that has no rapid charging capability and only a 3.3 kilowatt 16 amp charging. So it's a great car, but you can't rapid charge it, you can't take it on long journeys, and it's going to take you hours to recharge the thing. It's bonkers. So yeah, this has got the 6.6 kilowatt hour charge on it, and I loved it. I've absolutely loved driving this car for the past couple of years. I have barely rapid charged it. There is a rapid charger 5 miles from my home, but by the time I've travelled the 10-mile round trip and sat there for half an hour, I've really got to ask whether it's worth my time to sit there to save what is £1 or £1.50 in charging. So we charge a lot, almost exclusively from home for both our electric cars. We have a couple of 7 kilowatt charging stations there. So, but when I have been out and about, or if I've nipped up to Waterlooville, where you've got those 6.6 chargers at Sainsbury's or over at Whiteley, it's very useful if you're going out for dinner or if you're going shopping, just to get that, quite a significant chunk of electricity in there for a 30-minute or an hour stop. So, and they're much cheaper to install if you're putting charging stations. And my base location, I work full-time from home for an IT company, but the IT company's UK headquarters is in a complex called Lakeside on the outskirts of Portsmouth. They now have installed 8 charging stations, I think it is there. And they're inexpensive to do so because you can do it on standard electrics. You just need obviously thicker cables to put those in there. You don't need to have 3-phase electrics and all the groundworks that a rapid charger uses. So for charging whilst people are at work, it's a great scenario to put lots and lots of those 6.6 kilowatt chargers in. How am I doing? 14 minutes. I waffle a lot. This is all unscripted. It's kind of top of mind. Let's talk about my current thinking with what am I going to get next. So this could well be, and excuse me getting a sip of coffee here, this could well be my last Nissan LEAF for a while. When I got this car back in 2015, I sat down and discussed with Joe what we were going to do for a couple of years for cars. And we actually had 2 Nissan LEAFs at the beginning of 2015 because this was such a great deal. And we knew the Outlander was going to be coming. Let's talk about this one first, because this is the car that's got to be returned before the 1st of April. So this is, and let's talk the financials. I did get a special deal on this car.
from Nissan, the dealership, because Nissan were putting more money into the PCP. So I put down £1,500 and I pay £162 a month to drive this car. This is the Nissan LEAF 2015, like I said, 24 kilowatt hour battery pack, 6.6 charger and flat white. So those are two options. £162 a month. I have a 10,000 mile a year allowance on this car. I have driven 13,545 as of the 1st of January 2017. So I'm not going to hit my 20,000 mile allowance. So I'm under that. So I'm kind of kicking myself a bit because I won't have used as much as I've obviously paid for. So that kind of shapes my thinking for what I should be doing next. So I am talking to Nissan, my local Nissan dealer, about getting a new Nissan LEAF Tekna. Now the new Nissan LEAF Tekna has a 30 kilowatt hour battery pack, so it's 25% bigger in terms of storage capacity, but it's still the same size, the same footprint under the car. So the current Nissan LEAF is exactly the same car, bar a slightly better storaged battery, that's terrible English, and a slightly different entertainment system. So it's got DAB radio and they've improved the sat nav a bit. That's it. The rest of it, with all the options in the car, the interiors are all the same. I honestly thought by now Nissan would have announced the second generation 2017 200 mile range Nissan LEAF, and this is bothering / irritating me. When I got my Nissan LEAF in 2012, Nissan were ahead of the game. No one else had put a car together like this. There were lots of funny shaped little cars around. The Citroen C0, the Mitsubishi i-MiEV, they just look odd. They were small, squatty, thin cars. This looks no different to a Volkswagen Golf or a Vauxhall Astra, apart from some funky lights at the front and the back. So, and the amount of technology and the usable range that this car had, it was one of those step changes. It broke the mold. Nissan were thought leaders in electric cars back in 2011 when the first Nissan LEAF came out. What has happened, Nissan? You've had 5 years to get your act together. The rest of the market now has jumped, and let's give Nissan full kudos, because you would not have cars like the BMW i3 or all of the other electric cars that are coming on the market if Nissan hadn't had that thought leadership. But here we are in January 2017, we are still being offered the same shape car as 2011 with a few tweaks, and there is no sign of the 200 mile Nissan LEAF coming out. Now, we know it's coming. We know that they have played with 40 kilowatt hour battery packs, 60 kilowatt hour battery packs. There is rumours that the 40 kilowatt hour battery packs are already in production in Sunderland, which is where the Nissan LEAF is made for Europe. So we may well see in the next few weeks the announcement, and this video may well be out of date. The rumours have been for the past year that the next gen Nissan LEAF will not look like this one. It will look more like the Nissan Pulsar. And it will have a 200 mile real world range. Now they may just do that from a 40 kilowatt hour battery pack. They've managed to make the leap from sort of 90 miles in this 24 kilowatt hour battery pack to around 120 miles in the 30 kilowatt LEAF. And they might just at a stretch be able to claim a 200 mile range on a 40 kilowatt hour battery pack without having to do too much juggling around with the technology. But for me right now, all I can be offered is a 30 kilowatt hour battery pack Nissan LEAF Tekna. And by the way, I have gone to my local Nissan dealer and said, look, I won't pay the extra £250 for a white versus the standard flame red. And by the way, flame red, not much known about. No, it doesn't look too bad on the Nissan LEAF, but it's the free colour. Everything else you'll pay for. Minimum £250 up to the pearlescence that I think they're £500 or £700. I have said that I'm not going to need 10,000 miles a year. I'll be quite happy with 8,000 miles, so I've reduced my mileage, which should reduce the price. And I can tell you at the moment, Nissan have come back saying, well, to do you the deal that you've got, we can't do it for less than £199 a month. And by the way, we can't give you a 6.6 charger for that. That will break that £200 a month ceiling. So at the moment, I'm being offered the chance to pay essentially 40 quid a month more for 2 years for not having a flat white, for not having the 6.6 charger, and for doing 2,000 miles a year less each year. Frankly, Nissan, I am unimpressed. I'm also
I'm not going to use that. I need to say bored. Bored would undersell this car. I'm not bored of this car. I've just been driving it for 5 years. I know the car. It's a great car to drive. But when I've driven other cars, if you get out of this car and go and jump into something like the BMW i3, that EV grin turns into one great raucous smile. They are fast, they are fun, they're great cars to drive. This is great Magnolia. This works anywhere and everywhere. It is the best affordable electric family car that you can buy. I'm just ready for something else. It's not that exciting. It's nippy at the lights. I would still want to drive one of these instead of any internal combustion engine, and I will never buy an internal combustion engine car again because it's the wrong things to do. For the same reason I wouldn't spark up a cigarette if I smoked with kids in the back of this car, because diesel emissions and cigarette smoke are on the same level if you look at the NHS website in terms of carcinogenics. So I will never buy an internal combustion engine, but the choice out there at the moment is frustrating. There are cars like, you know, the Outlander PHEV, BMW have got a 3 Series plug-in hybrid, Mercedes have got a B-Class. The frustrating thing with those cars, and there's a 2 Series BM out there as well, which is a plug-in hybrid, I think it's the 225. The frustrating things with those cars is that the electric range in them is tiny. The Golf GTE, I was talking to somebody who's got a BMW, I think it's the 225 plug-in hybrid, and in the winter, when it's freezing outside and you jump in the car and put the heaters on, that car will do less than 10 miles electric range. Why would anyone want to spend all that money buying a plug-in hybrid that only does 9 miles electric range? That is bonkers. If I get frustrated driving an Outlander that only does 27 miles electric range before then the engine kicks in, imagine hauling around all of that technology only to drive 9 miles electric. It's stupid. Which is why in 2017, the only 2 cars that I would recommend, one isn't made anymore, brilliant, the Vauxhall Ampera. Now, the Vauxhall Ampera wasn't made by Vauxhall, it's not made in Europe, I should say, by Vauxhall Opel anymore. They may bring they may bring it back with the next gen Ampera, but that uses the electric car to drive, the electric battery and motor to drive the car, and when that runs out, it then uses the petrol engine to charge the batteries. And I'm going to say it with a caveat, with a little asterisk, it doesn't use the petrol engine to drive the wheels, it just charges the battery. And the second car, and the most likely contender for one of my cars this year, is the BMW i3. That has now been revamped. It's got a 94 amp hour battery under the floor now, and that, if you get the range extended version, will do 250 miles. Now that has a small 7-litre fuel tank in the back that powers a generator, a 650cc motorbike engine that charges the battery when the battery gets under 20%. But it only ever uses the battery and the electric motor to drive the car. That is the right concept. What is it with all these manufacturers making stupid hybrids that only do small electric range and then the engine flares up? Still sounds like 10 hairdryers kicking in. Now there are some glimmers out there. We've also seen in the past couple of years the Tesla Model 3. And I think there's something like 200,000, maybe 250,000 people who have put down their $1,000 deposit for that car. It still seems to be, I mean, I didn't like the boot on it, frankly. I understand the boot shape might be changing, but it had a very bizarre kind of letterbox boot on the back of it that was only good for fitting a set of skis, and that was about it. Money no object, I would get a Tesla Model S. I think that is still the #1 electric car on the market. Fantastic car, love what Tesla is doing, and great to see them doing so well. But they start at £50,000 in the UK. Thanks to Brexit and the collapse of the value of the pound against the dollar, that's gone up. So I've even looked at it on, for instance, our company car list, and that's now, oh no, it's stupid money for me to even consider that. I think I could get 3 Nissan Leafs for the cost of a single Tesla on our company car allowance. So let's just say Tesla out of it, unless you're a director on the board of a large company or a Premiership footballer. But that's just a point in time. Tesla price will come down, and they've always said the Model 3 will be in the same ballpark as a 3 Series BMW. So as of the 1st of January, my current thinking is, unless Nissan do something to offer a similar PCP to the car I'm driving now, I will leave the Nissan Leaf.
I will probably get before April an Outlander GX4h, so we'll have two cars exactly the same, and that is because I think we still need to keep one, because I'm running a brewery, and the brewery needs to have a lot of capacity in the back when you're carting around, you know, casks and firkins and stillages and everything else. I also think it's a useful car as a kind of fallback if you get a really harsh winter. We're not out in the sticks by any means, but we do live right on the edge of the South Downs National Park, so if you needed to get a 4x4 up the hill where we live, that might be quite handy. It's also useful if you are doing the bigger family journeys. It's got 5 seats, huge amounts of space in the back. Heck, we had a sideboard in the Outlander for our lounge at one point, so it's a useful space. It's also the only car you can tow with. So my dad has got an Outlander GX4h PHEV, and they haul a caravan with it, and they said it's been fantastic. They had a Nissan X-Trail before, and the amount of power you've got in the Outlander PHEV, it's fantastic. So if you need to tow a caravan, don't expect to get great. Don't. I've had some people comment on one of my blogs, getting, well, if I had a Volvo diesel or a Passat diesel, I'll get much better MPG than that. Well, yes, you will do, because a diesel will get much better MPG. But by the way, you know, you've seen enough on diesel gates, MPGs and everything. They're not the law. But it means you've also got, for the rest of the time you're not hauling a caravan, a car that does all of its local commutes, shops, everything else. You know, my dad hardly uses any fuel, because all of their, you know, they're retired, they're going around doing some shopping, going friends, going out for walk, all of that's done on electric. But you've still got the capability, if you want to haul a caravan around the UK. So the Outlander's a great towing car. Not that I plan to get a caravan. I've always said it'd be nice to have a boat, but I don't think that's quite on the family finances right now. So if we can't do a deal on the Leaf, then I'm going into an Outlander. Part of my mind just says, I've had it, I'm bored of driving a Leaf at the moment. There you are, I've said it. I'm fed up of Nissan losing the thought leadership as well. They should be out there. They've got the Renault Zoe, which is part of the same alliance, the Renault-Nissan alliance. They've got a new Renault Zoe out there, which is supposed to be doing about 180 miles. Where's Nissan? Now, they're obviously going to announce one this year, but they're not going to announce it in time for me to change before the end of March. So let's assume I'm going to get an Outlander, and I'm going to buy that, and I will claim it back through the business. So I will buy that rather than lease it. Even if the whole thing changes, the electric car landscape changes, I've got an asset that I could, you know, sell and then get the new Outlander, for instance. And the new Outlander will have, as I've read, a button which says electric only mode, and yeah, you can basically constrain the engine. And at the moment, when the Outlander, our other car, the company car, when that's up for renewal, bizarrely, the IT company I work for does not have Mitsubishi on its list. The other car I've not mentioned either is the Hyundai Ioniq. So Hyundai, somewhat out of the blue, have launched, or are just about to launch, this a car called the Ioniq. It's a very well made, kind of Ford Mondeo size car, but they are launching out in 3 versions. You can get it with a normal combustion engine, you can get it with a plug-in hybrid combustion engine plus electric motor, which you can plug in at home, or you can get it in pure battery. It's got a 24 kilowatt hour battery pack, but they're claiming to get 120, 130 miles out of the battery packs. They've done some very clever stuff with aerodynamics and coefficients to get that the range up for essentially the same battery size that's in the car I'm driving right now. So Hyundai are entering, and it's not, I mean, Hyundai typically, maybe typically is unfair, but have in the past not had the best reputation for build quality. Looking at the Robert Llewellyn video, the North Wales PR trip they did in recent weeks, it appears to have, and I think he was even saying, a Tesla quality to the interior fittings of it. So if they've got that kind of interior finish on a car which is doing, let's say, 130 miles or more, and has all of those nice to have fast charging and rapid charging capabilities, they've got a potential winner on their hand, especially if they get the price point right. But my company car allowance, or I should say the list of suppliers, does not include Hyundai and does not include Mitsubishi. I don't want to go into the politics of it. I'm at half an hour on this video, but yeah, the company I work for has changed their lease providers. We used to have 2 lease companies, we now have 1. And we don't have a full range of all the makes and models. So the Outlander I currently have on the company's car scheme is not available to me on renewal. So I'm thinking we may go for the i3 in July. So the BMW i3 with the range extender, I quite like that 250 mile range. The car is also fast. Compared to a Leaf, it is fast. I know the Rex hasn't got quite the full beans of the battery electric, the BEV version, but it's still just touching 100, just under 170 equivalent horsepower. It's quick. It is really quick. It handles well. Plus, and I almost considered buying an i3, a used one, but I think there have been some niggles. There's been problems with airbags. I think there were problems early on with some of the i3s. There was some just mechanical concern. I'm not suggesting anyone shouldn't buy one. The i3 is a great car. Just make sure it's had the warranty recalls done on it. Plus, they're also a lot of money. You know, I can probably buy a 2-year-old GX4h Outlander for about 15 grand, whereas there's a superb i3 from a reader on Speak EV that he's selling for just shy of, I think it's £20,000, but it's only less than a year old, or just about a year old. They hold their value, BMW. But I think I'd rather get one as a company car because it means I can get the further range one. And I also quite like the look of those. They've got roof lights or sunroof. They've got these kind of potted roof lights. I also think conceptually the i3 is a better car. This is a heavy lump. The Nissan Leaf is basically an electric car made to look like an ordinary car. Look at my original videos back in 2012. You know, they've even got the center, I want to call it dome, or the transmission tunnel that you'd normally get in a combustion engine car. You've still got it. It feels like you're not in an electric car, but there's lots of stupid wasted space. Not wasted space, but it's a heavy car for what it is. Whereas the i3, they started with a blank sheet of paper. They built the thing with an aluminium chassis with a plastic top on it, a carbon fiber. It does cost more, so maybe that was a price point decision by Nissan. But I think the i3 cabin is much more airy. I think it's more fun to drive, but it is a more expensive car. But bizarrely, on our company car scheme, I can get a i3 Rex. Okay, it won't have all the bells and whistles and all the extras, but I can get an i3 range extended new 94 amp hour for less than a Nissan Leaf. So there is a part of financial pragmatism there as well. Says, what could I get for the next 2 years? And by the way, we can get 2 or 3 or 4 years on our company cars that are offered to us at work. I just think that the electric car market is still changing rapidly. We are seeing many new cars come to the market. I don't want to constrain myself to a 3 or 4 year lease. I think 2 years on my next company car will be fine. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Outlander I only have for a couple of years. But again, it's down to basic math. This car, I said earlier in this piece, £1,500 down, £162 a month. I think I worked that out. It's about £5,200 over the 2 years. And by the way, I've had to pay nothing on this apart from one £99 service. So in the 2 years I've driven it, same tyres, same brakes, one £99 service, not even had to replace wiper blades. So the cost of ownership for this has been spectacular. I know on the Outlander, I think the servicing cost is something like 300 quid. It's more like a combustion engine, traditional combustion engine. So all that's to be put into consideration as well. Because when you are leasing a car, whether that's a company car lease or whether it's a private PCP lease like this is, you want to think of the total cost. And part of me says, well, even if I bought an Outlander for 15 grand, and if I really wanted to sell it in 2 years' time, it probably wouldn't have dropped by 5 grand. Or if it had dropped by 5 grand, it's the same cost as driving this thing, for having something far more usable in terms of space for our needs. And I go back to that point that because a friend of mine, fellow IBMer, had a Nissan Leaf at the same time as me in 2012. And when his came up for renewal, he jumped into an i3 and I jumped into an Outlander PHEV, because at the time we have 3 kids between us, and at the time Joe's eldest 2 kids weren't driving, but they now both drive and have both got their own cars. So we did need to have a family size car for doing those family holidays. But now those cars have got, they've both got their own cars, so we don't necessarily need to have a big car as the family car next time round. Whereas Nigel jumped straight into an i3, his kids were at uni or wherever, didn't have the same need profile, let me put it that way. So that's it. I think I've covered everything. I didn't even go too political this time, so maybe it's worth doing politics just for a second. I think we're looking at a very uncertain year in terms of 2017, from the UK, from Brexit, from what's going to happen in the US and Trump and some of the people he's putting onto his administration. They are not environmentalists. They are corporate oil people who he's appointing. So I'm not, mind you, he has also put Elon Musk on as an advisor on one of his panels. I'm cautious. / maybe even pessimistic. I don't think we're going to see much advancement in the thinking of the US and the UK government in terms of forwarding the adoption of electric cars. Let me put it that way. We've already seen that the grants for the UK electric cars have been reduced. Now, the government would argue that adoption is increasing, therefore it should be reduced. I don't think we're seeing anywhere near enough adoption of electric cars to even consider doing that. There are piecemeal efforts being made to introduce some more public infrastructure charging. I've seen some early consultation announcements from the UK government in terms of on-street charging, which is something that always gets thrown back to me when I do these videos. Portsmouth, the neighbouring city to where I live, Victorian terraces nearly throughout, hardly any off-road parking for the majority of residents. How on earth do they charge their electric cars when they get home? We need to have a much better approach to on-street charging. Frankly, why can't every lamppost have a charging station in it? So I think that's where we're at as well, with on-street charging and the governments. All right, I've been waffling now for 36 minutes. I hope this has given you some insight into these cars. It's great to get the feedback, and a lot of people are considering, you know, these kinds of cars. They've found these videos useful. I'm giving it really from an end user perspective, considering a family car. Our needs profile have changed because, as I've outlined a moment ago, the two eldest kids in our family are now 20 and 17. My son is 10, and we still do, you know, the centre parks kinds of trips where you still need to all jump in a car and take huge amounts of kit with you. But I see that changing for us as a family, so we might not need to have the two 5-seater big cars, or the one 5-seater big car. We could maybe get away with, you know, we could get away with an i3 and a Leaf, but all the time I'm running a brewery, I'm going to need something to haul some load. So yeah, end of that video from the 1st of January 2017, rapid charging. So here we go. Let's just get the front open. It's New Year's Day. The Nissan dealership is closed. It's like the Marie Celeste. No one here. Okay, so good old DBT CEV rapid charger. Great to see, by the way, that I think now all exclusively we have these much improved handles on the CHAdeMO. So let me show you how we use this one. So let me just clear that from the previous charge. Yes, we're going DC. I'm just going to go with a standard. So DC option up here. All right, now I've got to connect this. The great thing about these, you've got rid of that stupid great big lever. There used to be at the bottom, there used to be a lever here, and you have to press it in the right way. So over into, you've seen this before, but if you're brand new to it, needs a clean, look at that. So on the right hand side, that's the one for your home charger. The one on the left, this is called a CHAdeMO, great big CHAdeMO connection, and you'll see the yellow button pop out at the end. Back to the charger. No card required on this one. This is a 24-hour accessible charging point. It used to have the card, which you had to go into reception to go and get, but now it's not, and you'll hear this thing spin up. And it is for Nissan use, so don't come in here with your Outlander trying to plug it in. And it's having a quick chin wag. So this is the exchange between the charger and the car, and that double beep you just heard means that this will spin up. I'm at 33%, and what you will see here, and by the way, if you are getting geeky, if you're looking at the numbers at the bottom, you will see that different cars charge at different rates. On the Outlander, it won't go above 50 amps, so it takes much longer for it to charge, whereas this thing normally goes a little bit higher, but we're at 95 amps at the moment, 94 amps, and that will quickly charge this up to 80% in 20 minutes. It's got a red light on the end of the CHAdeMO adapter, and you will see on the blue flashy lights on the Leafy, each one of those representing 33% charge. We're doing the second chunk of 33%. So at Yeoman's Nissan, on a very quiet, gloriously damp 1st of January. Oh, I'll do the shot of the car. Covered in mud, as it is this time of year. That's what happens when you live out in the sticks. My 24 kilowatt hour flat white Nissan LEAF, which I'm getting ready to say goodbye to. Anyway, I will tag this on to the end of the last video. There is now, quite handily, just over the road here, the McDonald's. So I'll have to grab a coffee. And thank you for watching.